They toasted the death of Earth. They called it peace. Then their stars disappeared. The Galactic Union believed the war was over. Earth was gone. Its oceans boiled. Its cities turned to glass. The Union fleets had bombarded every major human colony. Official reports said, humanity extinct. In the Union capital above Ajurixes Prime, the victory gala was grand. Alien leaders wore shining robes. Music filled the crystal halls. Holograms replayed the fall of Earth again and again. Ambassador Varel stood near the balcony window. He was tall, thin, and silver-skinned. His kind believed in order above all things, and humans had been disorder. They were reckless, one general said beside him. Too emotional. Too ambitious. They refused guidance, another replied. They forced this outcome. Varel nodded. It had been necessary. Humans built uncontrolled jump drives. Humans ignored borders. Humans expanded too fast. They were a wildfire. So the Union extinguished them. Or so they believed. A junior officer rushed into the hall, breathing fast, eyes wide. Sir, long-range sensors report. The music stopped? Report what? Varel asked calmly. The officer swallowed. Unknown fleet entering system edge. Large signature. Civilian hull designs. The generals laughed. Refugee stragglers, one said. Probably traitors, another added. Varel turned back toward the stars, but something felt wrong. The stars near the system edge flickered. Then they vanished. Not from destruction. From blockage. Hundreds of ships. No, thousands. They did not arrive cleanly. They tore into space like scars reopening. Rough ships. Cargo hulls. Mining barges. Habitat rings. Not warships. But armed. Heavily armed. And they formed a perfect sphere around Ajurixes Prime. The music never resumed. The hall fell silent. On the largest central screen, the emergency feed activated. The fleet filled the sky. Dark, still waiting. A single audio transmission cut through every Union channel. No music, no threats, no drama. Just a calm human voice. This is Captain Mara Ilian of the Human Continuity Fleet. A pause. We are not extinct. Silence fell like a physical weight. Viral's stomach tightened. The officer whispered, but we destroyed their planets. Yes, the voice continued, steady and cold. You destroyed our planets? Another pause. But we never lived only on planets. The screen zoomed out. Hidden deep space habitats. Mining colonies. Rogue stations. Unregistered fleets. All now united. The Union had attacked cities. But humanity had been living in the dark between stars for centuries. The humans did not come screaming. They did not threaten. They waited, a calm, unmoving wall of steel. Varel felt something he had not felt in decades. Fear. The human voice spoke again. You mistook our home for our existence. You burned a forest and believed the roots were gone. Silence. Then the final sentence. We are the roots. The transmission ended. In the Grand Victory Hall, no one moved. They had not ended humanity. They had united it. And outside, the stars belonged to humans now. They did not hide. They were simply never counted. When the Union burned Earth, they burned cities. When they bombed colonies, they destroyed capitals. When they celebrated, they believed they had removed humanity from history. But they had only destroyed what was visible. And humans had never been only visible. 2 years before the Union attack, strange patterns had already begun. Unregistered cargo ships vanished from official lanes. Old mining stations went dark without filing closure reports. Frontier research outposts stopped transmitting but did not send distress signals. The Union intelligence marked them as lost assets. Minor data anomalies? Not worth concern. They were wrong. Very wrong. After the first bombardments, panic spread across surviving human systems. Cities fell in hours. Planets died in days. But in deep space, in the cold, silent, dark, humans adapted. They always adapted. Independent miners shut down transponders. Long-haul freighters rerouted through uncharted corridors. Old colony ships that never reached their destinations resurfaced. Humanity had always lived scattered. Corporations operated secret research sites. Prospectors lived decades inside asteroid belts. Private habitats orbited rogue planets far from trade routes. They were not united before. They were competitive, greedy, divided. The Union thought that was weakness. It was camouflage. When Earth fell, something changed. Old rivalries ended overnight. Corporate feuds vanished. Resource wars stopped. Every surviving human settlement heard the same message. Not a broadcast. A whisper passed from ship to ship. Regroup. Silent protocols active. Rally point Sigma. No central government commanded it. No emperor declared it. It was instinct. Humans were good at chaos. But they were even better at survival. In a forgotten asteroid belt beyond mapped space, a battered mining barge became the first meeting point. Then 5 ships arrived. Then 20. Then 200. Civilian ships welded armor plating over cargo holds. Habitat rings removed luxury sectors and installed reactors. Mining lasers were recalibrated into weapons. Colonists learned military drills in days. Engineers tore apart jump drives and rebuilt them stronger. Not clean, not elegant, but effective. Every human who survived lost someone. Every ship carried grief. That grief became fuel. They did not scream for revenge. They worked, silently, relentlessly. Captain Mara Ilian had once been a cargo transport captain. She had never commanded a fleet. She had never fired a weapon. But when Earth died, she did not collapse. She listened. She observed. She understood something critical. The Union believed victory meant control of territory. Humans understood victory meant control of narrative. So, they vanished. For 2 years, they allowed the Union to celebrate. They allowed them to demobilize fleets, to reduce patrols, to lower shields, to believe the war was finished. Meanwhile, humanity counted itself. Every hidden habitat, every deep mining operation, every lost colony. A census of survivors. The Union had declared extinction. Humans answered with math. And the number kept growing. Back in the Union Capitol Hall, Ambassador Varel stared at the sky filled with human ships. "They cannot sustain that many vessels," one general whispered. "Impossible." But sensor readings did not lie. Life support stable. Weapons armed. Jump drives synchronized. Not refugees. A fleet, a prepared fleet. Varel felt a cold realization settle into him. They had not defeated humans. They had triggered consolidation. All the scattered fragments they had ignored had become a single blade. The Union had fought humanity divided. Now humanity stood unified. And united humans were something the galaxy had never faced. Another transmission crackled across Union channels. Still calm. Still controlled. We will not bombard your world. Shock rippled through the hall. We will not strike your civilians. Confusion followed. The voice continued. You believed genocide ends conflict. It does not. It transforms it. A long pause. We are here to negotiate. That word hit harder than any weapon. Negotiate. After extinction. After planetary glassing. After annihilation. Negotiate. Varel swallowed. On what terms? He whispered. As if the human could hear him. The answer came immediately. You will dismantle the war authority that ordered Earth's destruction. You will submit to independent oversight. You will never again mistake survival for weakness. A final pause, and you will remember this night. Silence followed. The Union fleets were still scrambling. But too slowly. Too late. Human ships held position. Steady, unmoving, patient. They were not here to burn the galaxy. They were here to prove something worse. That humans could survive anything. And return stronger. Varel stared at the fleet. And for the first time he understood the true mistake. They had not killed a species. They had forged it. They expected rage. They prepared for retaliation. They braced for orbital fire. Instead, the human fleet did nothing. And that was far more terrifying. Above Aduraxes Prime, thousands of human ships held perfect formation. They did not advance. They did not scatter. They did not fire a single weapon. Union defense fleets scrambled into orbit. War cruisers powered weapons. Shield platforms activated. Fighter wings launched in tight defensive spirals. Every tactical display screamed the same message. Enemy fleet superior in position. Enemy fleet superior in readiness. And yet, the humans remained still. Captain Mara Ilian stood on the bridge of the carrier vessel Resolute Dawn. Her uniform was plain. Her face calm. Her eyes unreadable. Around her, civilian-turned officers monitored systems in silence. Union fleets forming defensive grid, her operations officer reported. Let them, Mara replied. No tension in her voice. No excitement. Just certainty. In the Union command chamber, Admiral Kesher of the War Authority slammed his clawed hand against the console. They hesitate, he growled. They fear our response. Ambassador Varel said nothing. He was watching carefully. Something about the human posture felt deliberate. Controlled. This was not fear. This was pressure. A reminder that the Union was surrounded. Watched. Measured. Another audio transmission came through. No video? No symbol? Just the same steady voice. Union Fleet, this is Captain Mara Ilian. We see your deployments. We acknowledge your defensive formation. We advise you not to fire. Admiral Kesher barked a harsh laugh. Or what? The answer came. If you fire, we will remove your fleet. Still calm. Still simple. No dramatic threats. No anger. Just fact. Union tactical systems began running combat simulations. The results arrived in seconds. Worst-case projections displayed in red. Estimated Union fleet survival rate, 12%. Civilian collateral risk. Catastrophic. Probability of planetary shield failure during sustained engagement. Pangaea humans had positioned themselves perfectly. Between Union fleets and their own world. If the Union attacked, they would risk destroying themselves. And the humans knew it. They had calculated every angle. Varel felt something shift inside him. This was not revenge. This was leverage. On the human bridge, Mara turned toward her communications officer. "Begin secondary transmission," she ordered. A new frequency opened. Public channel. Every Union civilian receiver activated. Across Oyuraxes Prime, millions of beings heard the human voice. "We address the citizens of the Union. We are not here to kill you. We are not here to erase your worlds. We are here because your leaders erased ours." A pause. 2 years ago, you celebrated extinction. Tonight, you witness survival. On Union streets, civilians stared at the sky filled with silent ships. The human voice continued. "You were told we were reckless? You were told we were unstable? You were told we were dangerous." Another pause. They were correct. A ripple of fear. But not in the way they meant. On the Union flagship, Admiral Keshe hissed in frustration. "They manipulate public opinion." "Yes," Varel said softly. And he understood now. This was not a battle. This was exposure. The humans were not attacking fleets. They were attacking narrative. They were dismantling the story the Union had told its people. And they were doing it without firing a shot. Back on the Resolute Dawn, Mara looked at the sensor display. Union fleets held position. No weapons discharged. No jump drives engaged. They were frozen. Uncertain. "Good. Status of outer perimeter?" she asked. "All sectors secure," her officer replied. "Nomad clusters stable. No formation breaks." Human ships, once independent and scattered, now moved like a single organism. Thousands of captains. One purpose. And none of them flinched. The human voice returned one final time for the night. "We will maintain orbit. We will not advance. We will not retreat. We wait." Silence followed. The stars above Oyuraxes Prime were no longer empty. They were filled with patient steel. The Union had expected an attack. Instead, they received a message. Humanity could have burned them, but chose not to. For now, and that choice was more powerful than any weapon. The first weapon to break was not a ship, it was doubt. For 12 hours, the human fleet did not move. 12 hours of silence above Oyuraxes Prime. 12 hours of watching. Union warships floated in defensive lines. Fighters remained on standby. Planetary shields glowed at full strength. But no one fired. No one dared. Because every commander knew the truth. If they struck first, they might not survive the answer. Inside the Union High Command chamber, the air felt heavier than steel. Admiral Keshe paced. "They posture," he growled. "They want surrender." "They want leverage," Varel corrected quietly. Keshe snapped his head toward him. "They are survivors with scrap metal fleets." "Not scrap," Varel said. He pointed toward the tactical projection. "Look closely. Mining ships restructured for combat. Colony vessels retrofitted with shield cores. Cargo haulers mounted with rail cannons. Improvised, yes, but efficient. Human ships were not beautiful. They were not elegant. They were practical. Built by hands that expected disaster. Built by minds that planned for failure. And now they were holding an empire hostage. Without firing a single shot. Across the planet, civilian networks flooded with debate. Some demanded immediate retaliation. Others demanded investigation. Old war footage of Earth's destruction resurfaced online. The official narrative began to fracture. The word genocide spread quietly at first. Then loudly. For 2 years, the Union had celebrated unnecessary action. Now the consequences floated above their world. And they were calm. Too calm. On the human flagship, Captain Myra Ilian studied incoming data. Union internal chatter increasing, her intelligence officer reported. Civilian unrest, trending upward. Expected, Mara replied. She did not smile. She did not celebrate. This was not revenge. This was correction. We give them 1 more hour, she said calmly. Then we show them the archive. Back in the Union chamber, an alert chimed. Unauthorized broadcast request. Source, human fleet. Priority override level. Supreme, how are they overriding our network? Kesha demanded. Varel already knew the answer. They planned this for years. The main chamber display flickered. Then activated. A compilation began. Union military logs. Authorization codes. Chancellor speeches. Orders signed. Orbital strike confirmations. Marius Corrin's authorization seal. Malachi's directive for complete planetary neutralization. No edits. No manipulation. Raw files. Broadcast to every civilian channel. A calm human voice narrated. These are your leaders. These are your decisions. These are the orders that burned our planet. The footage replayed Earth's destruction. Not dramatic. Not cinematic. Clinical. Cold. The silence in the chamber became suffocating. Kasha's face hardened. This is information warfare. No, Varel said quietly. This is accountability. Across the planet, protests ignited. Union citizens stared at proof they had never been shown. The conclave had called it surgical. Necessary, clean. The footage showed entire population centers erased. No evacuation corridors. No mercy window. Just fire. And now, the survivors were watching. From above, on the human bridge, the crew remained still. No cheers. No taunts. Only quiet resolve. Weapons? A young officer asked. Hold, Mara said immediately. They were baited now. Union fleet commanders would want to act. To reclaim dominance. To silence humiliation with violence. She would not give them that excuse. We are not conquerors, she said softly. We are witnesses. In the Union chamber, Chancellor Malachi finally stood. His voice trembled, but he forced strength into it. These are distortions. Context matters. But even he did not believe his own words. The room felt smaller. The ceiling lower. The ceiling lower. For the first time in centuries, Powell did not sit comfortably on the throne. It trembled. An emergency transmission reached the chamber. Sector 7 defense cruiser had powered down weapons. Refused combat readiness. Crew demanding investigation before engagement. Another message. 2 more cruisers delaying fire authorization. The cracks were spreading. Not in holes. In loyalty. Admiral Kasher's claws tightened. If we do nothing, we appear weak. If we fire, we may lose everything, Varel answered. The room fell silent. Outside, the human fleet glowed in steady formation. They were not moving closer. They were not escalating. They were simply present. A reminder. A consequence. A mirror. On the resolute dawn, Mara exhaled slowly. Status. Union fleet discipline decreasing, came the reply. Civilian broadcast engagement at maximum. She nodded once. Prepare Phase 3. Her officers exchanged glances. Phase 3 was not bombardment. It was far more dangerous. She stepped toward the COM panel. Activated the channel. This is Captain Mara Ilien. We request immediate removal of the War Authority. We request public tribunal. We request formal dissolution of the Genocide Charter. A pause. We are not asking. Silence filled the stars again. The Union stood at a crossroads. Fight and possibly burn, or admit the truth and survive. Above them, humanity waited. And they did not blink. The first Union ship to power down its weapons was not destroyed. It was ignored. High above all Euraxes Prime, one heavy cruiser rotated slowly. Its cannons, once charged bright blue, dimmed. Its targeting systems went dark. On every Union tactical screen, the signal flashed, weapons offline, defensive posture only. Admiral Kesha stared at the projection in disbelief. Who gave that order? No one, a technician answered quietly. It was the captain's decision. The chamber erupted. That is treason. But Varel did not speak, because he understood something Kesha did not. The humans were not threatening to destroy the Union, they were forcing it to decide. On the human flagship, Captain Mara Ilion received the update. Union cruiser Halvian has disengaged offensive systems. Response? None, she said. Maintain distance. No victory, cheer. No tactical advantage, exploited. Just observation. The Halvaran was not the enemy. It was a crack in the wall. Across the Union core worlds, protests grew louder. Citizens gathered in plazas beneath giant data screens replaying the archived footage. Parents held children close. Veterans watched in silence. Some wept. For 2 years they had believed Earth was a military target. Now they saw cities, families, unarmed ships trying to flee. The story they had been given was not the full story. And trust, once broken, does not repair quickly. Inside the Union chamber, Chancellor Malachi struggled to regain control. These broadcasts are emotional manipulation, he insisted. They seek to divide us. They already have, Varel replied calmly. Cassius slammed his fist on the console. Then we strike before more commanders lose nerve. Silence. Even Kasha heard how desperate he sounded. Varel stepped forward slowly. If we strike, he said, voice steady, and fail, the Union collapses. And if we surrender, Kasha demanded, then we survive. On the human fleet, Phase 3 began quietly. Encrypted messages transmitted directly to Union civilian networks. Terms, clear, measured, no demand for territory, no demand for tribute. Only 3 requirements: dissolution of the War Authority, public tribunal for genocide authorization, recognition of humanity as sovereign, equal power. Nothing more, nothing less. It was not conquest. It was correction. In orbit, more Union ships began to hesitate. Power signatures fluctuated. Formation, discipline weakened. 2 frigates switched to neutral posture. Then 4. Admiral Kesha felt it slipping. Authority did not fall with explosions. It drained away, like air from a punctured hull. We must act now, he whispered, but no one moved. Because none of them could guarantee victory, and for the first time, they were afraid. On Earth's former coordinates, there was only debris, radiation, silence, but somewhere far beyond the core systems, human colonies waited, listening, watching. This moment was not only about survival, it was about what kind of species they would become. If the Union surrendered, humanity could choose mercy. If the Union resisted, the fleet would answer. The choice was not simple, but it was clear. Back on Euraxes Prime, the final crack appeared. The Grand Defense Array commander transmitted live. His face filled every Union channel. I will not fire on a species we attempted to erase. My crew agrees. We stand down. The broadcasts cut abruptly, but the damage was done. Half the orbital platforms went dark. Kasha closed his eyes. He knew. It was over. Chancellor Malachi stood trembling. For centuries, he said quietly. We have maintained order. We cannot allow chaos to rule us. Viral looked directly at him. Order built on lies is already chaos. The chamber doors opened. Union security officers entered. Not aggressively, not violently, but with purpose. The era of untouchable authority had ended. Above the planet, Captain Mara received the transmission she had expected. This is Acting Councillor Varel. The Union accepts your terms. We request immediate cease posture and negotiations. Mara exhaled slowly. No joy. No triumph. Only release. Cease escalation, she ordered. All vessels hold. The human fleet did not advance, did not tighten formation, did not celebrate. They simply remained. As steady as they had been since arrival. On Union networks, the surrender was broadcast live. Not hidden. Not edited. The genocide charter dissolved. War authority removed. A public tribunal scheduled. History changed in a single transmission. On the human flagship, a young officer whispered, "We won." Mara shook her head gently. "No, we survived." On Ogaraxis Prime, the sky slowly cleared as tension eased. Union ships recalibrated to neutral stance. Weapons cooled. Emergency crews worked overtime. Not to fight, but to rebuild trust. Captain Mara stood alone on the observation deck. She held a small photo in her hand. A beach, a family. A memory burned into glass. She closed her eyes briefly. "This was for you," she whispered. Then she returned the photo to a pocket. There was still work to do. The Union had surrendered. But trust would take years. Maybe generations. And humanity now stood not as victims. Not as ghosts. But as equals. The galaxy had miscounted, and now it had corrected the numbers. The guns did not fire. That was how the new era began. Not with explosions. Not with cheers. But with silence. 3 days after the surrender, the human fleet still hung above Oyuraxis Prime. Engines warm. Weapons ready. But idle. The Union watched carefully. Waiting for betrayal. Waiting for punishment. It never came. Inside the former Grand Conclave Hall, the banners of the War Authority had been removed. In their place stood a simple circular emblem. Not of the Union. Not of humanity. Just a plain symbol of shared governance. Temporary, uncertain, but real. Varel stood before the chamber, now half empty. Many former officials had resigned. Some had been detained. Others simply disappeared into retirement. Power had shifted quietly, but permanently. The tribunal will begin at first light, Varel announced. No edits. No sealed records. The galaxy will see everything. No applause followed, only acceptance. Truth does not inspire celebration. It demands responsibility. On human channels, colonies transmitted cautious relief. Mining settlements? Deep space habitats? Frontier stations that had lived in darkness for 2 years. Now they spoke openly again. Families reunited across long-range transmissions. Children who had grown up hearing only survival drills now heard something new. Possibility, Captain. Mara Ilion walked through the human flagship corridor. Crew members stepped aside respectfully. Not because she demanded it, but because they knew what she carried. Every order she gave had weight. Every decision held history. An officer approached quietly. "Ma'am, tribunal feed is live." She nodded. "Put it on." Across the galaxy, billions watched. The first name read aloud was Chancellor Malachi. His image appeared on screen. No crown, no robes. just a tired, aging leader. The charges were listed plainly. Authorization of planetary bombardment, civilian extermination, suppression of intelligence, contradicting extinction claim. The evidence was undeniable. Malachi did not shout, did not deny. He only listened. And for the first time he looked small. In the Union chamber, no one defended him. Not because they feared humanity, but because they had seen the truth. The war had been built on arrogance, on the belief that power meant permission. That belief had ended. When the verdict was delivered, it was not dramatic. No death sentence. No public execution. Exile. Permanent removal from governance. Confiscation of authority. Stripped of legacy. The punishment was not revenge. It was removal. And that hurt more. After the tribunal, Captain Mara stood again on the observation deck. Ojiraxi's prime rotated peacefully below. No fleets in combat formation. No shields flaring. Just a planet. Alive. Ilya joined her. "It's done," she said quietly. Mara nodded. "For now. Do you regret not striking?" Ilya asked. The question was honest. Some human commanders had argued for it. For final dominance. For permanent fear. Mara took a slow breath. If we destroyed them, we would become them. Silence stretched between them. "We didn't come for revenge," she continued. "We came to make sure no one tries again." Ilya gave a small nod. And that was enough. Weeks passed. Human representatives entered the new Union Assembly. Not as conquerors, not as guests, as equals. The term genocide was formally entered into interstellar law. Not as theory, as history. Military oversight councils were established. Shared defense pacts restructured. Power was balanced differently now. Carefully. Consciously. But not everything healed quickly. Some Union citizens resented humanity. Some human survivors distrusted every alien face. Scars do not vanish. They remain. But scars also remained far from the core systems. At the edge of former Earth space, construction ships worked slowly. They were not rebuilding Earth. That world was gone. They were building something else. A memorial station. A silent ring of light around a shattered planet. A reminder. Not of victory, but of cost. Captain Mara visited once. She did not bring cameras. She did not bring speeches. She only stood before the glass viewport, looking at the broken world. She placed her hand against the cold surface. "We survived," she whispered softly. Not proudly, not angrily, just honestly. Back on Odiraxi's prime, the Union ambassador approached her during a formal assembly. "You had the power to end us," he said carefully. "Yes," Mara replied. "And you chose not to." "Yes." "Why?" She studied him for a moment. "Because extinction is easy. Coexistence is harder. And we prefer hard." The galaxy adjusted. Slowly, carefully. Human fleets no longer hid in shadows. Union patrols no longer assumed superiority. Joint operations began. Information flowed both ways. Suspicion remained. But so did respect. And somewhere deep inside Union archives, a new file existed. Marked clearly, humanity, resilient. Humanity, decentralized.
Humanity.
Never assume extinction. Years later, historians would call it the Audit War, the conflict that lasted only minutes, but changed power forever. They would study the strategy, the psychological strike, the microjump, the census broadcast. But the real lesson was simpler. Underestimation is fatal. Unity is power. Survival is victory. On the flagship, long after the crisis ended, a young cadet once asked Captain Mara, "Are we safe now?"
She looked at the stars
beyond the viewport. "No," she answered gently. "But we are ready." The guns had not fired. And that was the greatest statement of strength humanity could make. They did not need to destroy the galaxy to prove they mattered. They only needed to stand and be counted.